stuff. So yeah, thanks for coming. You guys already know this, but just I'll go to the next slide. Very quickly, we're not all going to introduce yourselves. I'm Pavitra, I'm the chapter president. And then today we have Ryan and Bella that are leading our meetings, but we have a bunch of new board members around the room. So if you do have any questions PRSSA related, we're your people. There's our faces, and if you look around the room, we're also in person. But I'm going to let Ryan and Bella take it away. Thank you guys for coming. Excited to be here.
All right, yes, thank you guys for coming to the Under the Influencer meeting today. Ryan, and then this is Bella. So yeah, I'm just gonna kind of quickly introduce our panelists for today. And then once I introduce, maybe if you guys want to get more in depth of what exactly you guys have involved with like social media, and then we can just move on from questions, answers. And then we were thinking of doing like a breakdown, like with smaller groups, but just because the crowd is big, we might just like follow along with just questions. So first, we have Dorothy. She is a clinical, I'm already gonna mispronounce it. Qihong practitioner and breathwork facilitator. She also does work as a Pilates instructor. She has over 23,000 followers on Instagram. And then she also does work with social justice and community development. And then next we have Erin. She is the Vice President of Influence Marketing at Day One Agency. She previously worked at Edelman as a VP of Influence Marketing, leading in US and food and beverage team. And then finally we have Megan, who's a DePaul alumni, and then she is Vice President and a brand strategy at Day One Agency. So yeah, if you guys would like just to maybe get more in depth of like what exactly you guys do and like kind of like how you guys involved with like social media on like a day-to-day basis.
So day to day, I'm a Pilates instructor, and as he said, breathwork and Qigong. And so I'm working with clients out of a studio, but I also love the idea because what I do, I feel is so important, is giving everyone an opportunity to have a lot of these tools and information for free. So I share a lot of that on my own social media account, and then I also work with the YMCA's national office, and I create a lot of content for them for YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and yeah, that's what I do.
Yes, and hi, I'm Erin Emond. So yes, I'm a VP of Creators and Casting, as we just shifted the name of our practice at Day One, but I do all day, every day influencer marketing. So my team, I have about 10 of people on my team at Day One. And they are spending all day looking for influencers, working with influencers, contracting, reviewing content. So we really like live and breathe influencer marketing every single day. I've spent the past 10 years doing influencer marketing. I started off before influencer marketing was really a career of its own, but I was at Weber Shandwick doing PR and like digital social media. And we were kind of like pitching influencers like you would pitch a journalist now. And it has evolved a lot over the years. And now I've kind of grown into this career path of really just leading influencer partnerships. And so that's kind of what I do on a day-to-day basis.
Awesome. And then I'm Megan. I work very closely with Erin before her team started. I don't specialize in influencers, but I've worked with them throughout my career, starting with bloggers when I was at Edelman doing recipe content. But I definitely work with influencers, look at their content from like a brand strategy perspective, make sure they're hitting client objectives. So partnering really closely with Erin's team, where I'm like very closely client liaison, digital strategy, and she is the master of all things influencer for the team. So we work very closely together, and there's definitely different players are involved in looking at different aspects when we put on these programs.
Thank you so much. So I know, Erin, you just said that compared to when influencer marketing first started, it's a lot different today. I was wondering if you would kind of get a little bit more specific on that, the differences of how it was a while ago and then how it is now.
Yeah, there's like, I think so much has changed. In the past 10 years, I think the influencer marketing world has just become its own career path in general. So I think that's the biggest thing is like, they say the number one job that people want coming out of school now, you guys would probably know better than I would, but is to be a content creator. So like the fact that people are thinking of that as a career path is one of the biggest things. But from the influencer marketing perspective, we have learned how to work with influencers. I think brands have seen the value of working with creators, and creators of all different size. I think when we were originally starting to work with influencers and bloggers, it was like, who are the really big people? And back then, in maybe 2012, 2015, when influencer marketing was kind of starting out, we were looking at people with tens or hundreds of thousands, and that was big, and they've grown. But now I think you really see the value of all different types of influencers, very niche communities, small nano influencers, big, huge macro influencers. You see career influencers, you see people who do it as a side hustle. Like there's just so many different ways to work with influencers now. And I think the biggest thing is that it's become so integral to every single brand's marketing objectives is to work with these creators.
Thank you so much. And just kind of leading off of that, Tutu, I know you're a wellness influencer. So when you first started, was a health/wellness creator what you had originally envisioned, or did you originally have a different idea for your personal page?
So not really. It sort of grew and I went with the flow of it. I have just come to the wellness world through my own I hate to use the word journey because it's overused, but through my own journey of just like injury and anxiety and all these different things. And so I left my sort of typical 9-to-5 job, which was in communications, and I started working for myself as a Pilates instructor and breathwork facilitator. And I wanted to just share what I was learning, like the trends I was seeing with my clients and even in myself on social media. And a lot of people just resonated with it. And so I just began to kind of cultivate the community that was growing through that. And just my lens on wellness is something that is really aligned with the YMCA's kind of views of just body, mind, and spirit. And so I find that creating content for them comes really easily because it's just what I do all day. And yeah, it's just kind of grown from there. It kind of took on a life of its own.
Nice, thank you so much. And just kind of leading off of that, are there any non-negotiables when it comes to the type of content that you create? Or how do you kind of navigate the idea of screen burnout when it's something that's essential to your job?
Yeah, I'm actually not on a screen very much. I'm working with people one-on-one usually, but screen burnout is a real thing that a lot of people struggle with. So, I mean, when I am creating content for my client, the Y, I'm thinking about what I see a lot of people struggling with and creating just tips and tools to address those needs. But I think you might be asking just how do I deal with like the need to constantly be producing content and how to keep it original? Is that kind of what your question is? And that's a big struggle because I find that when I have to balance just working with clients and balance putting content on my own, brands, social media, but also creating content for the Y, it's a lot to just constantly be doing, and it does kind of get tiring. And so I have to really be constantly renegotiating my own boundaries with, how much am I able to produce, and like, how can I also just continue to care for myself and all the other facets of my life? Because if you let it, just the nature of social media just keeps going. So you have to really be mindful, or at least I do, of not to get swept up in that at the expense of my own just well-being.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So this is a question that can be open to all of you guys. So with the growth of like apps such as like TikTok, I believe it's like now the most downloaded app internationally. And then there's also like the idea of like anyone can be an influencer, and we can like also get like the perspective like the agency and also like an influencer is like how has like that outreach like shifted your guys' jobs? And like do you guys look for like big names or like just more impactful niche micro influencers to that specific topic?
I can start, sure. So I would say it's both, right? And it really depends on what our brand, so I can take a step back. And when we do these programs, right, we usually get a brief from a client who tells us, what they want to do, is there a creative idea, what the objectives are, right? And so then on the brand strategy side, it's our turn to kind of take a look at it, work with our creative team, kind of find a creative idea and that thread. And from there, we'll identify where we want to go with our influencer. So is it a specific influencer that has office humor? Is it a specific influencer that we know, we just did one for Walmart where we want them to have brand truth. So we want them to be authentic Walmart shoppers. And in that case, we wanted them to be both top tier, macro, and then we did a brand admission, so we knew we were gonna get micro influencers. So it's really looking at all of those things to fulfill what our brand objective is. And we go from there to Erin's team and like, here's our criteria, here's what we're looking for. What do you guys think?
Yeah, and I think like from my perspective as someone who's hiring the influencers, TikTok has like completely disrupted how we look at influencers, because when we were looking at just Instagram, the way the algorithms on Instagram worked, like it was much more important to have people who could give you organic reach, where TikTok, because of their algorithms, the way that they move, and now we see so much of what TikTok has, implemented being pulled into other platforms like Instagram, YouTube, even taking learnings from, what TikTok has seen as successful. But so it has changed the type of influencers we can work with, because really like a micro influencer on TikTok could blow up overnight and they could be huge. And someone who has 50,000 followers on TikTok, they could get millions of views on a video. So it really like has changed how we're able to approach selecting influencers, but some of the core things have always stayed the same. So who's the audience that we're trying to reach? So, if you're trying to reach a mom, that's different than, somebody who's a Gen Z age. We have to look at who the people are who follow these influencers. So we have technology that we can use, that we can see, this influencer has the biggest base of our target audience, so that's the kind of person we want to work with. So some of those things have stayed the same, but then, there has been disruption. Every time there's a new social platform or there's an update, we kind of have to adjust and be nimble in how we're working with influencers and how we're picking out who to partner with.
So I think for me, TikTok, it just like you said, it's kind of a different way of disseminating the same information, at least for me. And so when I think about what needs to change when I'm creating content for TikTok, I'm thinking of how I can communicate the same just important information, these like really meaningful ways to connect with your body in a really small amount of time. And so my challenge is not only to think about obviously who the wise audience is, because I myself personally am not on TikTok, I'm just on Instagram. So thinking about the wise audience, but also how I can stay really true to what my own message is, like not to get swept up in what all the fads are or like a challenge or whatever. I am really passionate about what I do and the meaningful and quality information that I share. So I am just constantly thinking about new ways to share that important information in a way that still feels authentic to me and is not like getting hijacked by some of the ways that we can compare ourselves to the other people on that channel.
Yeah, so you guys like kind of mentioned like the algorithm, and like TikTok especially has like a extremely strong like personalized algorithm. So like is it like a day-to-day thing, like where you guys are constantly looking at different trends, or is it more like a weekly thing where you kind of like regroup and see what are the trends right now in social media and how can we like get those like algorithms to consumers with our like products and stuff like that?
I say you have to stay on top of it pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
I know personally, I always look at TikTok like as I'm brushing my teeth during those 2 minutes and like see how many TikToks I can get through, try to find those like right during the downtime. But we also have at day one what we call writers' rooms. So it's people who come together and the concept of that is to see what trends are out there. Do they involve any of our clients? Can they involve any of our clients? But it has to be keeping a pulse on TikTok and knowing what's out there, what's resonating. Is it a format? Is it a trend? Is it a phrase that people are using, and how we can evolve it there? Because the trends on TikTok, because of the algorithm, come really quickly and they die really quickly. So it's just, making sure you're staying on top of that. And Erin mentioned being nimble and agile, and that's the name of the game.
And I think one example of a writer's room that we had that it was a few weeks ago, so Chipotle is one of our clients. And so we have our teams, every team's meeting these writer's rooms every week, seeing, like Megan said, what are the trends, what's going on, how can we capitalize on this for the client? And it was a few weeks ago when the corn kid had like started taking off. And so we were like, okay, we have to do something with him. And so we were able to really quickly partner with him to do a video for Chipotle where we brought him to a Chipotle store. I don't know if you might have seen it, but they kind of like go down the line and he's there and he's like, does this little, it's corn line. It was so cute, but that came from our team just being on there, seeing what the trend is, thinking of how does this make sense for our client and how can we move on it really quickly.
I think that video actually popped up on my For You page.
It was like my favorite thing we've done recently. It was very fun.
And I think the other thing about that, working from the agency side, is when we have these ideas, we have to pitch them to the client, right? And so we have to say, here's the trend, here's what's happening, here's what we should do. And we have to get them on board because they have to give us the head nod, they have to say yes. And the client was like, I don't know, should we just like see what's going to happen with this? I haven't really seen this popping off on my, my For You page or on Instagram or whatever. And then it's our team turn to counsel them and be like, we need to get on this now because you don't want to be the last one to jump on this, right? And then it turns out he ended up on Cameo and all of this, and you have the song, but we were able to connect with him before all of that really took off. And that's the key thing about like keeping your pulse on what's happening and just acting quickly.
Thank you. So I know Erin and Megan, you guys had some favorite cases that you wanted to share with all of us. If we wanted to pivot to that now, there we go. Okay, it's right behind you.
Amazing. Yeah, we can jump to I can talk first to the next slide. One of our clients is Nike, and so we did around their 50th anniversary this spring. I'm going to jump to the next slide. They celebrated their 50th birthday, and so such an iconic brand, like they wanted to do something really big to celebrate. So we jump to the next slide. They were coming out with this new ad campaign, and it was featuring Spike Lee. He had played this role of Mars Blackman in this really iconic TV ad. I think it's from the 80s, 90s. And so they were going to kind of reinvent this ad and make it a way where the character of Mars Blackman was handing the torch to the next generation on Nike's birthday to show what the future of sport looked like. So we, as the agency for Nike TikTok, were asked to see how can we make this relevant for TikTok. And so we wanted to make something that was TikTok first. We never just want to take like an ad campaign and put it on TikTok because you as consumers, like that doesn't make sense. It's not fun to interact with. So we needed to make something that was really very TikTok first and really could engage that audience that they wanted to, which was this Gen Z young audience, and have them celebrate with us. So on the next slide, we knew, knowing the TikTok platform, audio is so key. So really having audio that we can use was the biggest thing. If you're a brand on TikTok, you can't use like a sound that just exists on there. You have to have the license, the rights to use it. So we couldn't, I think at the time, Wiggle Wiggle was like the biggest sound. Like we couldn't just go use that because we don't have the rights. We wanted something that we could own and that could really make it, perform well on TikTok. So we created this cool ad or campaign song that took this very iconic line from the TV ad that was going to be running at the same time, where the main character on there was Spike Lee, says, you think you've seen it all, you ain't seen nothing yet. And we took that and we made it into a cool song that was very native to the TikTok platform. So then we took this song, we worked with a bunch of creators and we had them make a really cool spot, a really cool TikTok that kind of showed like what the future of sport looked like to them. So it was an ask from Nike to say, hey, Gen Z, like tell us what the future of sport looked like. And so we partnered with this group of 6 TikTokers. If you go to the next slide, they each showed us what the future of sport looked like. So you can see here, we have Adrian Nunez. He's a college basketball player who had recently graduated, him and his girlfriend Carson Rooney. They created this really cool video that was showing to them the future of sport is basketball, it's being active. We had a Jojo Vasquez, he was this like cool like skater, he did some like skate content, but then we also brought in people who were born in the lifestyle space. So someone like Lisa Asano, she's this pottery creator, and so she was able to create this video that for her the future of sport was movement. So we basically brought all these different people to show and really get this trend going to show Nike what the future of sport was. And then we launched everything with the audio on the same day as the TV ad campaign launch. And we had, a bunch of TikTok paid media to help support it. And we've got thousands of videos of people using our audio to show Nike what the future of sport was. And then we were able to take some of those user-generated videos and make a really cool compilation that was an ad campaign at the end to wrap it all up to show us what the future of sport was. And we had some paid media that helped promote it, but it wasn't a big ad campaign, so the work was very organic in nature, and we were ended up being the #2 trending song right behind Wiggle Wiggle at the time, so it was really cool. So it was a really interesting campaign, and it really just kind of set the scene for Nike for their next 50 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then Megan will talk about Walmart.
Yes. Awesome. So one of the clients we work with is Walmart. And we have these campaigns, right? Walmart as a retailer, they kind of sell everything, but they have very specific times of the year where their inventory changes. They have their holiday, they have their summer, they have their fall Halloween goods. But for this one, we really wanted to make Walmart what's synonymous of celebrating every second of summer, because they have everything you need to really activate, right? You could get your pools there, you could get your popsicles there, you got your summer clothes there. Walmart's the place to go for summer. So to do that, we partnered with, I could just skip to the next slide. We partnered with Curtis Roach to create a song for us. As Erin mentioned, songs and sounds are the co-creation element of TikTok that really drives everything. And if you know Curtis Roach, he's the guy who, at the very beginning of the pandemic, started the trend with board in the house and in the house board. This was a year after that, right? And people are really excited to get out to summer. Things are happening again. We're like, what if we revive that in a way, but we flip it on its head, and we really want to make it about being outside and really embracing every second of summer. So we partnered with him to create this song, and then we also knew that we had to talk about all of those elements that Walmart has, or those departments and categories that you can buy through different influencers. So as Erin mentioned, we wanted to take a look at the influencers who maybe they don't have big followings, but they're very big in like the camping space, or they're very big in the fashion space. And we know that they can generate a lot of views based on, their style and who they're talking to, and maybe they like to do a little bit more like budget fashion. So finding that crew of creators who can really help tell this story. So I don't know if we can click these, but if we want to click them, we can hear the song. This image is clickable. But we worked with him, co-created a song that we call Summer Every Second. And it really has that like very similar beat that Board in the House has, but changes it to summertime and we're going outside. We can't play it, it's totally fine.
I think we can.
Okay.
Just give me a second. If you want to keep.
Yeah. So, and it's a co-creation process, right? Because we have our messaging points. It's something that I think we're working on. We're doing a couple now where we work with creators, create these custom sounds, and it's really like that creative thread that's going to be the beat throughout all of this creator content. So even if they don't have the same storyline, they're all going to have the same sound. So when you hear them, when you see them on TikTok, they're all connected to each other.
And I think one thing about this one and the one I just talked about with sound, we've learned is like working with these creators, like Curtis Rowe, or like.
I'm so sorry.
No,
You can play it.
No, you.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it's super. We found it being it's so successful to work with these creators who actually know TikTok music. Like we can hire a sound house who makes music for whatever purpose. But if it's not somebody who's a TikTok creator who knows what performs on the platform, it's not going to perform as well. So that's why we partner with people like Curtis Roach, or like for Nike, we worked with Chong the Nomad, who really do this stuff every single day, and we trust them because they know the platform.
Summertime, I'ma go outside. For the sunshine, I'ma go outside. Yeah, summertime, I'ma go outside. The weather nice, so I'll go outside. We're gonna go outside. Yeah, go outside. Yeah, summertime's here, I'ma go outside. The weather nice, so I'll go outside. We're gonna go out.
So we kicked it off with Curtis. You can see his video. He has the grill, he has the burgers, he has the planter, all of the furniture, the hammock, and those are all things that you can purchase at Walmart. And we really wanted to partner with these creators and make sure these products were in these pieces of content because Walmart was then going to use them as ads on TikTok. And if you work with TikTok, one of the first things they say is make TikToks, not ads. So we knew when Walmart's like, we have this media buy, we have to show all these products. We're like, you have to partner with creators. You can't just put out like your TV spot. You can't put out what you're putting on YouTube. It has to be specific to TikTok. So with that, we partnered with Curtis Roach, kicked off. He kind of covered all categories and then partnered with other creators in the home space, food space. They were very big on like s'mores and ice cream. So that's what we focused that content on. Beauty, which was all about skincare and that sort of SPF beauty angle, outdoors, and then fashion to help spread the word and use them as ads. And we saw 4 times greater click-through rate on these ads than we do in previous Walmart accounts. So that was a fun one to see, and that got them really excited. So we partnered with them, and then these are also clickable if you want to take a look at them. But again, every creator used the same song. They were able to showcase their summertime going outside vibes for the category. So we had Lover's Passport, who did outdoors. They're very big. They like to go camping, and it's all about what they do outdoors. So they were a great fit. And then Tati, Good Eats with Tati, focused on making a ice cream sundae with all of the great value products available at Walmart. And then connecting brands to culture, and that culture element of board in the house, flipping on its head now that we're going outside for summer, really helped us drive results. So I also talked about the click-through rate. We saw 1.1 million organic video views, and that's on top of the paid support, and then 603,000 creator video views, which had no paid support and was completely organic. And then these are a little bit hard to read, but we also like to look at the comments that we get on our content to see what people are resonating with. Like, do they love those things? Are they buying it? Are they saying they're going to buy? And then we can talk about that as conversion as a metric of success. And then we can also see if people are also jumping on this song and creating their own content. Like you see here, somebody's playing with their dog. We have some Walmart associate actually in the store with all of the great beach toys that they have. So looking at really everything, not only the quantitative success, but also the qualitative that we can share of how a campaign worked.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
sharing. And so Tutu, we also wanted to ask, what would you say has been the most difficult aspect of trying to grow a following or reach a larger audience as an influencer?
Yeah, so I think the most difficult thing is just staying on top of what's trendy and coupling that with why you're creating this content in the first place. So when I think of my personal brand, I have to really stay in touch with why I'm sharing this information. I'm not trying to sell people anything. I don't want anyone to need to buy anything new. It's really just sharing these thought starters to get yourself in conversation with your own self. And so I think the hardest thing is just being able to produce that at a rate that stays relevant. And I think that relevance in itself is kind of a difficult concept in social media because that world just moves so quickly. But I think the most difficult thing is really just the rate that's reasonable to be able to put this information out to the world, because I'm just a person and there are other facets of my life. So making sure I stay steady in why I'm sharing what I'm sharing. I want to share something that's meaningful. I don't want to just create noise for the sake of, posting regularly. And then also making sure that this doesn't become something that I resent. Like, it's something that should be fun. It's a way to engage with people in a community space here, and it's I want it to be something that feels like a good part of my life and not like it's taking over my life. So even when we're, talking about how important it is to stay on top of what the conversation is, like on TikTok, where fads and trends move so quickly, you have to spend a lot of time on social media just to do this research. And so it can be tricky to balance how much time do I really want to spend on social media, and how much time do I want to spend on the other parts of my life. So I want to spend enough time on there to have a meaningful connection with my community there and to really hear about what people are talking about. What vocabulary are people using? How do people talk about the relationship that they have with their bodies? What are the issues that are coming up for these people, while also having a boundary, between myself and social media, which is tricky.
Yeah. So following up, and this is open to all three of you guys, how would you guys define a successful social media campaign? Is it like an analytical thing, like how many impressions you're getting, or comments, likes on all that? Or is it kind of like a company or a person telling you this was good work, like Walmart told you guys did good? Or is it more how can you guys define in this era a successful campaign?
So I think for me, it's probably going to be quite different for you both, but it's different for content I create for myself and then content I create for my client. So definitely for my client, I want to make sure I keep an eye on how it's performing on their channels. And I, like to see what people are saying, and obviously hearing from them, oh, this is great. It's performing really well is wonderful. And to me, that means it's successful, and seeing, myself that it's performing well is great. For me personally though, because I'm not in it for the number of likes or the number of followers or whatever, for me, success is, oh, someone reached out and said this was really helpful. That's successful because it's impacting someone and someone learned something. And even if that's just one person, that is successful. So it gets pretty simple with me.
I would say for us, I think for on the brand side of influencer marketing, everything that goes into it and comes out is there's art and science for it. So when we create a campaign, we're always developing the campaign with a goal in mind. So a campaign that's created because we need awareness of a new product is very different than if we're trying to get, brand love. So we would set our objectives different. If we're looking at awareness, we're trying to get impressions from a quantitative perspective, and that will show us, we set benchmarks based on, how many influencers we're hiring, is there paid media behind it, what do we think we can get, and then we can measure based on that. And again, those will be different. So it might be an engagement rate, because if it's something more if you look at a marketing funnel, the top is about awareness and you need to move consumers down into conversion. So, as you look at the middle, it might be more around did we have a high engagement rate? Was there a lot of shares and likes and comments on these videos? Or did we get high reach? That would be that upper funnel. So we can measure that, and that's kind of part of what that's a big part of what we're measuring, because that tells our clients, was this successful? But then we also, and myself being the person that's kind of between the brand and the influencer, a lot of it is quantitative too, though. We want to know from influencers, was this successful for you? Did you enjoy working with us? Did you get a positive engagement from your followers? Did you grow your following at all from this partnership? That stuff tells us if it was successful too, and seeing the content quality is always great too. So if we got really amazing content quality coming out of it, that's a win for us. So I think there's a few things that we look at.
Yeah, and I think just to build on yours about your relationship, I think another thing is, would we want to work with this influencer again or this creator again? And is it a good fit for the brand? That's also successful, because I think we've worked together on a number of projects, and there's a number of creators that we've worked with for Walmart multiple times, because we're these are good partners. They get what we're trying to do. They get our voice. It's a successful relationship. So from my POV, I feel that's a measure of success.
Yes, agreed.
And then also to the to the more qualitative ones, I could talk about, if you Walmart, you know, this brand admission we just launched a couple of weeks ago. We had a great number of impressions, all of that was good, but what's going to be successful for the client here was learning more about our actual shoppers and like what they love about Walmart, what makes them a Walmart shopper, what gets them excited when they talk to their friends and they like talk about Walmart, what they want to share, and getting those stories was successful to them. And it wasn't necessarily like the quantity of stories, but it's the quality of stories that they were trying to get. So you couldn't really put a number of that, but we did like a sizzle reel, a super cut of that. Client was really happy and excited for it, and they felt like they got a good, the output that they wanted, they got out of it, and you can't really quantify that. But it was a little bit more than a good job, but more like this is the type of information and responses we wanted from our shoppers and from TikTok.
Thank you. Those are all really insightful opinions. So I wanted to open up the floor if anybody else had any questions for a short Q&A. Any questions that you guys were curious about? Yeah, Christina.
Yeah, so my initial question is, you mentioned, so with Chipotle, you guys seem to have an existing relationship where you're like, okay, Corn Kid, this is good for you guys. But then you've also mentioned a lot of like different campaigns specifically that you've worked on. How much of what you hire or of what you guys do at your company is like actually maintaining and running a client's social media versus just helping and running campaigns with them?
That's a great question. So from a day one perspective, I worked at a few different places. Some places are very much focused on, we'll help you run your social media. We have this like package that you can, you know, this is your scope of work. This is how many posts we'll do for you. Day one is different. All of our scopes is really dependent on the clients and their needs. So what we might do for Walmart, and it's very campaign specific, is what it's different than what we do for some of the other clients I work on, where we do, here's your content calendar for the next month, and we'll shoot this content for you, and we will write the copy, and we'll give you a strategy for that. So I don't know the exact number of breakdown, but we do a little bit of both of that always on kind of content creation, and that really more like bigger campaign project-based work.
Yeah, so just like a quick follow-up from that is, do you guys find yourself like, if you've like that relationship, so like with Walmart, for example, you do a lot of like campaign specific stuff. If you guys see a trend or something that you think would just like be really good for Walmart, even if you don't have that content calendar relationship, would you still reach out, or would you just leave it because you're not in that current role?
Yes, so I would say that's a part of like really client relationship building. And if there is something that we see works really well, or we see a mention for Walmart, absolutely, we would share that with them. Or if it's like, hey, this one is good to comment on, or this one, you know, we saw this pop up, something for you to consider. And then that's an opportunity to be like, yes, thanks, you're always thinking about us. Or hey, that's great, do you want to like produce this for us? And then we can talk about expanding the relationship there too. So, you know, it's those opportunities, we don't want to shield them. But, you know, we want to make sure that we're really driving those positive client relationships.
Thank you.
Sarah.
Susu, how does being like having the actual license impact the type of content you can create versus like, I know a lot of people who practice yoga will try and like post, but they don't have any license or any information behind it to like make it realistic.
Yeah, that gets kind of slippery because you want the information that you're sharing to be quality content. You want it to be safe. So, for example, when I'm sharing fitness related content, and I kind of struggle with the words like working out or fitness because I'm very just like movement as a way to be with your body. But I am very aware that the way the Y is sharing this is to a very wide audience. And so I have to make sure that what I'm sharing, there are some modifications. There are a lot of just like, I don't know, we don't do anything too intense. But for example, if you have this problem, try it this way instead, or always listen to your body and don't push past a sensation that like doesn't feel great. But I think that those credentials are really important to have and to pay attention to just as a consumer of content. If you're consuming this content, you want to make sure that the person who's giving it to you knows what they're talking about. So I think that that's really important, not only for me to have as someone who's sharing this, but as any consumer to pay attention to, you know, what are you taking in and what's the quality of that content that you're taking in? But that's our own kind of process of filtering out all the noise that's on social media and what's like worthwhile and what is kind of less worthwhile.
And then I have a follow-up question, but like on the agency side, when you guys are looking for influencers on your campaigns, are there certain qualities that you guys are looking for? Like how can this influencer make an impact on the campaign you're working for? Like why did you guys pick those certain Nike influencers for that campaign?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things we look at when we look at influencers for our campaign, and a lot of it is tied to what the goals are that we're trying to accomplish. So, you know, if we're trying to get something like widespread awareness, so for the Nike one and similar for some of the Walmart work we're doing, we need to get wide reach. So we're looking at really big influencers, but it could be different for different campaigns. A lot of campaigns, we are looking for more niche communities. So we'll look at smaller influencers with really engaged audiences. So we look at things like the follower count, what their audience makeup is, so we can see like where's their audience based, what are their interests even, like this influencer has people who are interested in health and wellness, so that's great, that's the kind of person we want to work with for a certain campaign. So we look at that stuff, we look at engagement rate, like do they have an engaged following, is their following interacting with the content, and then we'll look at stuff that's more around like content quality, so you know, did they produce really high quality content? Are they doing a lot of reels? Like if we want to do Instagram reels for the campaign, we need somebody who's really good and well versed in doing Instagram reels. And we look at, you know, all different types of things when it comes to content performance. And then we'll look at, you know, when it actually comes into actually working with the influencers, we'll look at things like, what do we expect that they would charge for this? What could we negotiate a rate based on how many influencers can we partner with? If we know we need to get 10 influencers and we have a certain budget number, then that will affect kind of how we, you know, make our mix so that we know that we're gonna get a really nice combination, but also fit within the budget that we have set out. I don't know if you have anything else to add, but.
Kind of as a follow-up to what he said, how do you navigate like non-brand friendly influencers? For example, if you know that an influencer has that engagement, has that reach, but maybe they're not the most brand friendly, like what do you look for in that, and how do you navigate, you know, working with that influencer?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So I think the majority of that comes down to the client's level of comfort. So like we have some clients who, like Chipotle for instance, like we work with many different types of influencers with them. They are less risk averse. We have other clients who, you know, are more risk averse and they want to keep, you know, they don't want to, you know, work with anyone who pushes the boundaries too much. So it's kind of knowing the client and knowing like what comfort level they'll have. But then we always like thoroughly vet every single influencer that we're going to partner with, because we want to make sure that, you know, there's nothing, they don't have any kind of, you know, history of like legal history. We want to make sure we know if they're saying things that are not, you know, brand safe, depending on that comfort level of the client. And we have technology, so we use these influencers research tools, and they are scanning every single post that influencers do up to 10 years back. So we can see right away, oh, here's, you know, a red flag that this person had tweeted this thing. We can go review it, say like, okay, you know, we don't think it's that bad. We're still going to recommend working with them. Or we see something and we're like, you know, that's just not something we're comfortable showing to the client. So it's a little subjective based on, you know, what the client is, what level of comfort, and what they're saying or not saying that might be considered brand safe or not.
Okay.
Annie.
So I'm currently in my current internship, I'm doing like all things social media related for this company. And one thing I notice about myself is that like my creative process is kind of all over the place. Like I'm just like, I don't know, it's all over the place. So I guess I wanted to ask, can go to anyone, what are like the steps you guys take when it comes to like coming up with these like creative ideas or content, you know, ideas in general? So what are your steps? I need help.
So I can take that to start. I have a different approach for when I'm creating my own content and when I'm creating content for a client. So for the why, it's it's pretty straightforward what they're looking for, and I'll often create a little calendar of content that I'm expecting, but that's based on a lot of different themes that they just repeatedly recycle over the years, like American Heart Health Month or falls prevention, so we'll focus on balance. Like, so it's pretty straightforward, the content that I can expect and what I'll calendar out for them. And for myself, I really use my work one-on-one with clients at my studio to think through what trends am I seeing in everyone I'm working with? Like, where are people in pain? Where are people kind of stuck with their emotions or with their body? And that is what I'll talk about. I don't have a plan really. It's more so, this feels really relevant right now. Let me talk about it. So it gets to be as all over the place as my mind is, as all over the place as my clients are, but that is what feels most relevant to share. I like when I create my own content for it to be just like, go with the flow of what feels like it needs to be shared.
Authentic.
Exactly, because I feel like that's a little bit more real anyway, and that is what feels more natural for me to do.
Right, and like authenticity right now is like extremely relevant, and that's like what we want to see. so.
Totally, and you can really tell, the difference between someone who's sharing like from their heart and from like what feels real to them versus someone who's really curating their content, or they're trying to sell you something. Or just for me, that especially in the wellness space, I think whenever it's highly curated or trying to get you to buy something, it seems really sticky and kind of preying on people's vulnerability or whatever. So I like to make it really like, this is free information. Take what you need when you need it, and that just feels better for me personally.
That was a really good question. And I feel like it was super relevant because I know you guys mentioned before that there's so many different types of influencers out there now, and like navigating that, I'm sure, is a struggle. But I know that Erin and Megan, you guys have some career paths in influencer marketing, a slide that you guys prepared for us. If you wanted to talk more about that, we're gonna pull it up right now.
So there are so many different types of career paths you can take in influencer marketing now, which is so exciting. Like I said, like when we were first starting out, like influencer marketing was not a career of its own, and it's really evolved, and it makes me just so excited to see like so many different career paths people can take. So we just want to show you a few options, but always happy to talk through other ideas too. So you can work at an integrated agency like Day One. So, we are managing influencer creator partnerships for our clients as part of larger integrated programming. So, some of the examples like we talked about with Walmart and Nike, those are part of, larger interagency ideation, larger interagency marketing planning, and the role that you're kind of playing there is being part of the digital creative or PR agency that's managing those influencer relationships. So it's really fun. You kind of get to think in lots of different ways. You can go many different verticals, many different levels of how involved you are with the actual influencers. Like even within our agency, I'm very, very focused on influencers, where Megan is kind of works with influencers, but also does other broader digital work too. So you can be, very specialized or like more digital focused. You could also work at influencer marketing companies. So there are tons of different companies that just do influencer marketing. So technology platforms. So we use at Day One, we use this company called Captivate, and they are a database that houses about 30 million influencers, and they have teams there who are every single day onboarding new influencers into their platform. But you can work in so many different ways at different types of just very dedicated influencer marketing companies. You can work brand side. So a lot of brands are hiring their own influencer marketing people. So one in Chicago that I always follow is Vital Proteins. They have a huge group of people who are specific to influencer marketing within Vital Proteins, but lots of different companies do that, or social digital influencer hybrid roles are at every single brand. So that's really getting closer in on the brand side. You can also work in a talent company. So even, every type of influencer today, whether they're nano to like celebrity level, a lot of them are having talent managers now, and the majority of how we're working with influencers because of this is working through those talent companies. So you could go into the talent company side where you are representing a handful of influencers or a book of influencers, and your job is to find them brand sponsorships and to be the person that liaises with the integrated agency or with the brand. So there's so many different possibilities. And then I think on the next we have one more slide that shows what we do, to a little bit of a deeper look at day one. Apparently do lots of dancing. But if you're working on an influencer marketing team at day one on my team, what we're doing is like kind of what Megan was talking about, is staying up to date on what those cultural trends are. So going through TikTok, going through Instagram, seeing like what are the things, how can we apply this to one of our clients? Looking at program results. So once we finish a program, we look at it, we say, what went well, what can we do better next time? How can we share that? How can we share learnings from Walmart, with the Nike team, with the Converse team, so that we're, always optimizing. We're building relationships with influencers. So my team, every week, we're having intro calls with talent managers, with influencers. So it's a lot of networking and relationship building. And then we do a lot of negotiating, so we'll contract the influencers. So I find that part really fun. So doing the negotiation of each deal. And then of course the collaborations. That's one of the most fun parts, is just working every single day with influencers. So this is a little bit of a look of what it looks like to work in influencer marketing at an agency like Day One.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So it is 7:00. We'll just kind of put like a final bow to this. Like Tutu, Aaron, or Megan, do you guys have like anything to plug, or like any final messages you guys want to like kind of finalize about like social media influencing, and the idea of influencers?
I feel like a really important thing that I just try to keep in mind, and I think it's really important generally people keep in mind, is just about how much screen time we are engaging with all the time. So, I mean, thinking about one of the most viewed videos that I created for the Y was all about this postural adaptation in our neck that is like I'm seeing so many people with, because we're always
That's
looking
nice.
down. Yeah. And so I think plugging stretching and also plugging boundaries with social media in general, because I think that's really important just for our own health and well-being.
Yeah, I would say follow Day One on Instagram. Not too much though. Don't at D1A. We post. So we do a monthly series called The Ones to Know, and there we're highlighting usually about 5 to 10 creators from who are like within emerging communities, so really driving different subculture trends. So it's kind of our way of showing who you should follow, who you should know. So I would say follow that and kind of stay tuned. You can see everything that we're up to. We're always sharing all of our client work, and it's fun to see. And then we do an apprentice program at Day One. So we'll find out when we're starting the next one, and we can send it to you guys. But we'll post those on our website. So if you ever see anything you're interested in, you can always reach out to us.
Thank you.
If you guys want to stay a bit longer, there's ice cream. I don't know if there's still ice cream, but yeah, and if we want to just do some light networking, introduce yourself.